I wouldn't consider myself an entrepreneur. In fact, most of my life, I've considered the entrepreneurial spirit something you either have or don't have. I just didn't have what it takes. And honestly, it's a message I've told myself my entire life. I just don't have what it takes. When I was in high school, I went out for the football team and I was the smallest guy on the team. 4 years of practices and two-a-days and, of course, game days, and I never played. I had resigned in my mind. I just didn't have what it takes. A couple of years ago, our family moved to a new city and state. I was in a situation where I needed to find a new job. I'd started freelancing with photography, but it wasn't enough to allow me to go full-time. After several months of earnestly searching and applying for jobs, getting a few interviews, but never getting an offer, the message that was reverberating through my core was that I didn't have what it takes. You can imagine the fear, the doubt, the low self-worth that I was battling. It's not a good place to start from, particularly as I was beginning to consider starting my own business. As I was developing a business plan, the most important work was focused on my self-worth. You see, it's not so much the business plan that was important, it was the mental space from which that business plan was created. That process, it took me back to my senior year in high school. It was our sports banquet, and my football coach gets up to the podium and with tears in his eyes, awards me an MVP trophy. I didn't fully appreciate or understand it at the time, but it was a message. I may have been the smallest guy on the team. I may have never played, but I had value. I had what it takes. Wherever you're at in your business journey, every day, probably multiple times a day, you are faced with the question, you're faced with the decision to accept or reject the message. You don't have what it takes. Your business is what it is because of who you are. You are your brand. Your customers, they're not just buying a product or a service, they're investing in you. Sharing your story shows them the value of your brand. My name is Kenyon Gerbrandt. I'm a filmmaker who works with businesses and business owners, sharing their stories of overcoming to achieve greater brand loyalty. I want to communicate and build your brand's value.